Hi, I'm Mike Olson, and I wrote the piece of music called Shift that I'm going to talk to you a little bit about. It is basically an electronic piece. It's very electronic in nature. It's also, it's quite formalistic. You got an A section and a B section, and then there's just a little bit of B before A, just a little teaser, and then after the B, there's just a little bit of the end of A comes back at the end, real bookendy. So yeah, I feel a little funny about it. It's just totally self-consciously formalistic. Really not what I do now. But this piece, I just love it, and it just keeps surviving. And I'm so glad that it's included now on the Innova Recording 6 projects. It's one of the 6 projects. It fits aesthetically with that group very nicely. But everything else on there is built in my fragment music composition method. This was the turning point, this piece. Actually, it took forever because I recorded the sample first.
Hi, I'm Mary Dana, and I had the opportunity to work with Mike Olson a few years back on this project. I had to shift from vowels one to another, and it was really interesting because I had to hold out the notes and hold them for as long as possible because we had to get all the vowels in one breath, which was part of the project's challenge and a lot of fun as well.
I started building this piece with it, and then it kind of languished. I got tied up into another big chamber music project, my last conventionally notated piece of chamber music I ever did, and all during this time I was on the brink of going into this fragment composition method. And so, then the piece wasn't really done, and it was hanging out partly done in the studio. I had a bunch of effects all tied up with it and everything. And I finally I had to just get it done and get it out of here. So I just kind of quickly wrapped it up and just put it away. Finished the piece, recorded, got it out of here. And then it just kept surviving. I kept liking it, and I keep coming back to it over the years. And I play it for people. I said, man, I just really like this piece. So I'm even though now compared to what I'm doing now, it's a little bit of anachronistic. Aesthetically, it's definitely in my aesthetic, and it's just a really cool piece, and I want to talk a little bit about it. So in order to understand what's going on with this thing, the sample, well, remember samplers kind of not as used as much anymore because everything's in the computer, but before you'd have a sampler, which is basically a digital audio recorder that works like a musical instrument. You record something into it, and then there's a way you can play back that recording off a keyboard, right? So it's like you have a digital recording at one pitch level that you can tune it so that, okay, I want that basic sample to be C or whatever. So then you can play it from a keyboard, and to play the lower notes, the sampler slows the recording down to get a lower pitch, and to play higher notes, it speeds it up. It speeds the recording up to get a higher note. So the sampler was sitting around. Mary Dana was so nice to sing on that for me. One day I started making this piece. I thought that it would be interesting to create this piece where I'd build up a chord. Now, to understand what's going on here, I'm sorry, but we have to talk about physics. Just a little bit of physics of acoustics in order for you to, just real basic, just so you get what's happening and why it's interesting. We'll limit ourselves to the human voice. In the voice, if you hear different vowel sounds, E, U, ah, if you're on one note, you hear that one note, it's all staying the same. E, U, ah, they sound different, but they're on the same pitch, right? You hear that same note. The thing that's making them different is you have the fundamental pitch, is the note that you identify as the pitch. That's the fundamental pitch. All the things that make an E sound different than an U, than an ah, than any other sound, is all of these other pitches that are happening at the same time as that fundamental, but they're way softer, way lower amplitude than the fundamental. And that's what creates the color. So that's why an E sounds different than an U or an ah or whatever. So you can imagine in the sample, because I didn't have her go E, U, ah, I had her just do E, real gradually shift, as long as she could do it on one breath to go through the vowels. When that sound is sounding, you're hearing that one note, and then you're just hearing all of these other overtones shifting around. They're all gradually changing and shifting. Maybe that's not that interesting, but what's interesting is if you stack them and have them playing together, different notes at different speeds to get the different pitches. So you can just imagine, here's your primary sample. Then you're going to build up a chord. Well, you have the lower notes they're going to be quite a bit longer. And then each higher note is shorter, 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 till you get to the highest one's quite a bit shorter. What I wanted to do was do like that, have them all end, together. As the notes are coming in, of course, each one at the entry point, you got one that's going along. The next one comes in, it's going to be on a different vowel because it's starting on the A. The A was back here for the last note, right? So it's on something else by that point. And likewise for each successive note. So as they're all coming in, they're all on different vowels. So they all have a different, arrangement of overtones. The spectra is all different. And it's all shifting, and it's all shifting at different rates. And I thought, oh, that'll be interesting. And it is interesting, and I really like how it sounds. But what I was totally surprised by, I was not expecting, is something very interesting happened when all of those notes, when they eventually all got to the end, because I arranged them so that in the computer to trigger them so that they would, so I could control, where they would start. So, because what I wanted to do is get them to all end right together. And so I had to figure out, where can I start each one in order to get them to all end together. What happens when they all get to the end, when they all end together, all of a sudden, all of those harmonics and everything all line up and they join together when they get to the end of the last vowel. And I thought, well, it would just start to sound on the same vowel, but it's as they're shifting like that, and maybe because of the different pitch levels, I don't know, probably, there's just a interesting sweeping effect that happens. I was completely shocked by, I was not expecting. It was very, very interesting to me. I really liked it, still like it. So I said, oh, well, that's really cool. So now what do I do with that? So anyway, this whole first thing is based on that. You have the slow build up, right? And then the slow build down. So you have what I just described here, the slow build up of the chord. What I did is then I recorded that out just to a stereo sound file, brought it into the computer, flipped it backwards, butted it together, and then really altered it in the computer, changed the signal processed it, altered it in a way so it would sound different. So you have the build up with the interesting effect, and then the mutated version of it tapering down, back down to a single note, now with odd harmonics because of how it's processed. And it's just a really nice, elegant, simple form. Sorry for the long explanation, but in order for you have to kind of understand what's going on to get that. It's all irrelevant in the end, because what matters is that it sounds like something that you like how it sounds. I love how it sounds. So anyway, that thing happens. And what I did is just before that, I did just this one little Minimoog gesture. Minimoog, the beautiful Minimoog D vintage synth. I played just this one beautiful little descending phrase, and then it gets down to a droning note that then crossfades, dissolves into that first low note of the chord buildup. So that was the little hint of something else is coming. So you get that, then you get this interesting long effect of the building a chord and all the harmonics and the transformation, and then the reverse coming all back down to single note that's in a mutated form. And when it gets down to one note again, right off the tail end of that, a 3-note Minimoog ostinato descending happens. Just descending. Boom, boom, boom. It just sort of fits right perfectly with the end of that vocal sound. It's just this 3-note pattern. Just 3 notes just by themselves. Really sparse here. Just 3 notes just descending. And then that's all it is. And you're just hearing that by itself. And then enters a drum part and another bass part. It's unusual. So the drums are extremely sparse. And the whole thing about this is it's very, very spare. It's very sparse. You have a drum part that's just a kick drum and a hi-hat only. And the kick drum just playing on beat 1. And the hi-hat just going along. Does some little 16ths once in a while, but it's just mostly just 8th notes just going along, or quarter notes depending on how you're counting. All right, so you have this descending 3-note ostinato on the Minimoog, beautiful, luscious sounding thing. It's doing its thing real slow. The drums come in with the second bass part, and I wasn't even so much thinking about it at the time, but as the piece edit got done, I said, well, that's odd. This is a groove. It's a very nice, solid groove, and it has 2 bass parts working in counterpoint. I kind of didn't even set out to do that. It evolved that way, and then I realized I had it, and then I really went with it. So you have these two parts in counterpoint. You'll just listen to it, you'll notice it. One is descending, one is ascending. One goes down, one goes up, and they move at different times. And it's counterpoint, and it's beautiful. And then you have this real simple drum part. The only thing that's working in that groove, there's one other element, and that is just this stabbing chord that comes at a certain point in the groove. Once per cycle, you'll hear it, and it does this little delay, slaps across. And that is a sample of the Mini Moog. Mini Moog is a monophonic instrument. Basically, you can tune it to play a chord, but it doesn't play chords. I mean, the keyboard will only trigger one thing at a time. So I have a bunch of samples I've done of it over the years where you can play chords of the Mini Moog sound. So just this stabbing Mini Moog sound, and it's real kind of harsh and real short. It's also going through a Big Muff distortion box, an old vintage Big Muff distortion box. So that's the groove as it's assembled. You have these two counterpoint, there's two bass parts working in counterpoint, very, very, very minimal drums, kick, hi-hat, hardly doing anything. The stabbing thing, really just once per cycle of the pattern. Real simple and feels awesome. I really love how that feels. I think that's partly why I keep coming back to this. I said, wow, this sounds so cool. It sounds good if you turn it way up too. It sounds really good. I can mention just by way of technology, since we're talking about technology, the kick drum sound is coming from that same sampler that I used to do the voice. It's a Akai S900 sampler, and that's where it's really good for percussion. It has a really nice kick drum sound, one of many that I use that back in the old days when I used the sampler, and it's an awesome kick sound. And the hi-hat is actually off my very old Linn drum machine. It's very old. Actually, I'm thinking about using it again. It's been in storage for a long time. This was actually the last time I've used it was when I did this piece. And all I did was pull the hi-hat off of it because I liked it. Interesting, odd instrument. But, I mean, that is anachronistic now. I mean, it's all in the computer now. But I'm thinking about revisiting it in another piece coming up in the future here. But anyway, hi-hat off the Linn drum, kick off the S900. We've talked about the other things. Okay, and then that groove gets going, it gets established, it plays. Then in come these lovely, very electronic, real buzzy electronic string sounds, very synthetic sounding, but I mean, not trying to sound like natural strings, I mean, sounding really electronic and really nice. And they're being played from a Roland D550 synthesizer. And they're also going through my old vintage Moog 12-stage phase shifter. It gives it, you hear this real sweepy kind of sound. I also use the phase shifter on the hi-hat. So, well, we're just talking about all the technology, but that's also in here. It's kind of a neat old effects processor. I won't talk to you about all the other effects, but that's just kind of a neat one. The odd old ones are the Big Muff distortion box and the Moog phase shifter, kind of neat old things. Okay, so the strings come in, they do their thing, they move slowly through their progression, this groove going on. They come to an end, and then out of that comes this Mini Moog solo constructed out of fragments, real sort of sustaining, feedbacky. Mini Moog, again, Big Muff distortion box, sound real kind of guitarish at times, sounding real, dark and cool. I got to that point in the piece. Now remember, this thing took a long time because I was kind of working on, kind of coming back to it and not finishing and not knowing what I wanted to do with it and wanting to go on to a different kind of writing. So now I've got this whole thing kind of built up into the computer up to that point. I go, well, now what do I want to do? I really want to do something completely different, and I've been off working on this chamber music. So, and it was tying up a bunch of hardware physical effects that we had in the studio. It was a big patch bay, and I was saying, don't touch any of this stuff. You can use this stuff. Don't touch that stuff because I don't want to screw this up. So I just had to get it done. So I finally just finished and did something. All I did was I just said, okay, so the groove gets going, the strings come in, the Mini Moog. We'll just repeat the string thing, and then we'll take a little bit of that end of that voice thing, and we'll put that onto the very end here, and it'll be a nice ending, and it's logical, and it makes sense. Very, very, very formalistic, very self-consciously formalistic. I felt like a total cop-out at the time. I just hated that I was doing it. I just had to get it out of here. And I didn't know what I wanted. I wanted to do some other kind of music completely, and I just wanted this to be done and out. So I just did a logical thing, just did the thing that made sense, and just finished it. And so I kind of didn't like it because I said, oh man, I just totally copped out on that piece. Whatever, it's done. So that's a lot to say about such a short piece, but and it's such a simple piece to look at it or to listen to it. It's real simple and it's real obviously formalistic and everything. Doesn't seem like there'd be that much to say about it, but obviously I have a lot to say about it. So I appreciate your willingness to watch this video and hear me talk about it. I'm really glad that the piece survived and that I didn't just completely throw it away. I felt that bad about it at one point, so I'm glad that I hung on to it. And now I really like it, even though it's, like I said, I don't write this formally anymore. I do a different style, but I still really like it, and I think it fits really aesthetically well within my general body of work that I've been doing for quite a while now. So there you go, Shift. Thanks for listening to it.